This is a render that cost me $0, made in a free program. It's quite funny to realize that everything is possible with the right approach. Here's a little bit of my work. All my life, I've been interested in cars. When I started getting into Blender, I wanted to create realistic footage of cars. Let's make a deal. You get this half-hour tutorial and this file for free. On my Patreon for $10, you will get 2 blend files, a tire and a brake disc made by me, a realistic car paint, and a small tutorial on how to fix the Rigacar Addon so that you can make realistic suspension animation. Let's start with importing the model. For this tutorial, I will take this Brabus model. A high-quality car is always a different story. Sometimes you find it on Sketchfab, sometimes the option is to buy it for a big price, sometimes the only model on sale is not of the best quality. And then you have to hope that you can get a car from the game, like this new M5. Hit the pause and see what the differences are. The only problem with the cars from the game is that the mesh may have to be redone. It took me 4 days to change the mesh, and this is the result. Now let's get back to our Brabus. The next stage is materials. I'll change EV to cycles and add HDRI to see the result. Make sure you have Node Wrangler Addon enabled. Press Ctrl-T. I'm using HDRI from the Polyhaven. I'll add a plane for shadows. We're lucky. Most of the materials are already here. Now I will add the simplest car paint, as if the car is covered with a matte film like here. I decided to make a matte film in this tutorial because... Now there will be an excerpt with a slightly different car from the tutorial for Patreon. For many people, car paint looks something like this. Just principled node. You see, car paint contains things like flakes, slight bumpiness, and varnish. You can search for tutorials on YouTube or just download material from Patreon. After all, I need to somehow earn money in order not to return to the construction site. Plus, it's only $10 and you get a lot of goodies. You can cheat and just make the car matte, but matte paint still looks like this. But it doesn't show up in regular shots. Now I'm making a glass material. The glass should give off a little blue tint and a little metallic. Here I forgot to set IOR to 1, but I will fix that soon. Install this material on all windows. We'll return to the rear windows a little later. I discovered an artifact here, now I'll fix it. First, I will merge the points that are superimposed on each other. Now let's change the triangular mesh to a square one. Unfortunately, Blender doesn't understand how it should look. Now I'll fix the visible part. You can rewind this moment using the time code, or you can just stick. I think this should be enough. Now let's just add a subdivision and see what happens. Now no artifacts are visible. Let's fix the wheel material a little. Surprisingly, the taillights look pretty good. I wouldn't change anything here, except maybe lower the brightness a little. Now we'll go back to our rear windows. But we'll make them a little darker. As I said, I forgot to set IOR to 1. Now I'll make the blue color less intense. This thing around the edges of the glass should always be completely black. There should be black rubber here, but we'll just make it blacker so that it looks good in the frame, because the glass will be closed. Using Ctrl-J, we will merge everything back. Let's remove strange artifacts. Looks better. Now I'm changing the materials a little more. You can rewind this moment. The tires will be in motion, so in this case I won't bother, but if you want a cool tire and you have money, then I recommend tires from here. The link will be in the description. I also have a nice tire and brake disc made by me, available on Patreon. Looks pretty good at this stage. Let's move on to Rigacar Addon. To animate the car, I use the fixed Rigacar Addon. Watch this video. The link will be in the description. I need to add an axle to the body, wheels, and brake calipers. The names of the empties will be in the description. Now let's parent this wheel to empty. Press Ctrl P. So, let's unparent the wheel. To do this, press Alt P, choose clear and keep transformation, and repeat Ctrl P. Now let's do the same for the calipers. Now check everything. If you have something wrong, remember the cursor and body empty must be strictly in the center. Now we will build a highway scene and take this photo as a reference. I use Quixel Bridge, you create an account, and the entire library is free. Everything will be blurry, so 2K textures are perfect. Unfortunately, the add-in does not work perfectly. I export everything to Blender 3.6 LTS. I always delete the principal node and add a new one. Now I'll show you why. Now let's do the same for the barrier. I will use the road not from Quixel. Almost all the textures there are 2x2 meters. Polygon has better asphalt textures, but they are only available by subscription. The free file will contain another free texture. Now I will texture the asphalt. Now I copy all this into my project. The car in these shots will be slightly different. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. Now I'll put it all in order. In order to multiply the object, I use array. It is important here that the object overlaps each other. Here I decided to widen the road. Note, I select correct face attributes so that the texture does not move. It turned out well. I think now we can start the most interesting part, car animation. The car will change lanes, therefore you need to add path. It is very important to immediately turn it -90 degrees. According to my calculations, the car will travel approximately 133 meters. Let's make the path the same length. We put the car in its original position and add follow path. Be sure to check the boxes as in the video. Not bad, but the car must move at a constant speed. That's why we set linear in the interpolation mode. Here I am setting up the path. Here I add the Audi that our Mercedes will overtake. It is not in the free file, but you can pick it up on Patreon. Now I'm adding a camera. I prefer the parent camera to the empty. It makes it easier to animate in the future. Now let's animate empty. If our car travels 133 meters, then empty too, or we can make it a little slower or faster so that the frame looks more alive. Now I'll add a little camera rotation. Focus. We need focus to add background blur. Let's parent focus to the car so that it moves with it. Now I'll complete our highway scene. To make the scene more full, I decided to add a sound barrier. I'll download the model from Sketchfab and modify it a little. Let's see how it looks in the render. It looks good. Now let's move on to the most important thing in car animation, what all people ignore, adding the reaction of the wheels and body to road irregularities. First, let's add a bump in the road. For this, we need to increase the number of polygons. I add a displace modifier, then a cloud texture. Now in the Rigacar settings, we select this asphalt, but only on wheels as shown in the video. Let's see. The wheels always twitch a little even on a flat road, and a slight vibration is always sent into the body. In the end, it should look something like this. Also, when driving through holes, joints, or a sharp change in the degree of inclination of the road, a spring effect will occur. On a sports car, it will be harder. On a Rolls-Royce, it will be softer. People often try to hide the flatness of their animation by adding action to the frame, and it is difficult to notice that the car is just driving like a tram. Now there will be a 7-minute screen recording of how I adjust the body's reaction to a difference in the road. You can rewind by timecode. I needed to do this because YouTube promotes long videos. Or you can just grab a cup of coffee and watch the whole thing while listening to music. Notice how the graph looks. The basic setup of the add-on does not allow such animations, since the body is too tightly tied to the wheels. To fix this, you need to go into the bone settings and fix a few things. Also, do not forget about the negative camber. It is mainly present in sports cars. Video with fixing the add-on is on Patreon. Finishing touches. Let's add some basic compositing. This is what it looks like. Now is the very last stage. My rendering often goes wrong, so I always render in separate frames and then put it all together. Hit render. Then, after a few hours, we need to do this. Set the resolution in FPS as it was in your project. Select all the frames you rendered. And finally, the final render. It turned out pretty good. Okay, see you in the next tutorials. I have big plans.